Thank you, Lord. All right, let's get Lauren on. Here she comes. Lauren, thank you so much for meeting with me and helping me to understand what you do, and for being here today for people who are currently having to go through this divorce process. Nobody expects it or wants to go through it. And I think because of the movies, we're all a little scared of what
That's
divorce
true. That's true. The
is
movies
going to
don't
look
give
like.
a great impression of what it has to be like. That's true.
So tell us about what you do. You're a family law attorney,
Yeah.
and what does that look like?
So I'm a family law attorney. Even since I graduated from law school, in law school, my favorite classes were family law. I was most interested in it, I think, because I saw it as being so important. And so basically, as soon as I could start specializing my practice after law school, I started specializing in the area of family law. And particularly, family law can be big and it can include joyous occasions like adoptions and other events like that, but it can also include really challenging family circumstances like divorce or party separating where you have child custody issues. And that is actually where I've focused the majority of my time. And so in doing that, I've worked in trial situations, I've taken cases to trial, but I've transitioned my work now to working as a family mediator and a collaborative divorce attorney. And in doing so, we are able to um, focus on building a future for a family where we can, where that future might look different from what they planned at the beginning, but helping them to find a peaceful place.
Did you struggle with um, helping people get divorced as a Christian?
Totally. Yeah. That was the process that I had to think through. And a lot of my beginning of my practice, I was really focused on helping survivors of domestic violence walk through a safety process truly for themselves and their children. And so in that place, I knew that helping them to establish safety was really important, and divorce was part of that, and to establish autonomy. And so in doing so, I still had to think through, though, what does the Bible say about divorce, and what are we facing? And of course, nobody wants divorce. Nobody plans for divorce when they start their marriage. And a lot of my clients that I work with also did not plan for divorce. But it happens because in our country and in the world, I mean, it takes two people to be married. And a lot of my clients that I work with have dealt with situations where their partner decided not to be married anymore. So divorce was a choice that wasn't one that they made, but they had to still walk through that. And so, for whatever reason, families have come to me and they need help walking through divorce. They are people who believe and who follow Jesus, and yet they've still gotten to a place, despite their great faithfulness, of finding brokenness. And they have to meander through a legal system that is secular, that puts everyone into an adversarial position where that might not be where their heart is residing. And so I'm
Right.
so glad that I feel like the Lord has empowered me to stand in that place, and shepherd through a process for those who have to encounter it.
So it doesn't sound, from the way you describe it, it doesn't sound like you are um, linking arms and going, "We're going to knock them down," um, you know, take everything right. You actually do want what's in your client's best interest. That's part of your commitment as an attorney. But what is in your client's best interest is often helping them through this process without becoming further injured and without injuring the other party even further. Because divorce can, well, it can turn us into ugly people that we don't want to be, right?
Totally.
And you see past that. I love that you help hold your clients up in the kind of person that they truly want to see themselves as. I remember a few instances during my divorce where I was not somebody I'm proud of.
Mm.
I've lost my mind a couple of times, and I just didn't do things that were really in line with who I want to be as a person and who I believe I should be. And so it's neat to me that you actually, as an attorney, you partner with your people to help them come through this and be able to respect themselves at the end.
Yeah, and that's an absolute goal, and to embrace something that's going to help them again establish a new normal for their family. So many of my clients come in, they have children, they share children. So
Yeah.
certainly you can separate your relationship, your marriage is divorcing, but you still have to have a relationship with that person. And if you
Yeah.
go through a prolonged court battle, which sometimes is unfortunately unavoidable, to have an amicable
Right.
divorce, again, just like a marriage, you have to have two people committed to staying collaborative or to staying amicable. So it's not always possible, and the courts are there for a reason, and they're necessary at times. And I have a lot of respect for that. But when couples are able to step out of that and start to work together, what I can see through collaborative process is that we can build a professional team around them to help them with more aspects than just this legal part of their divorce, but there's all these other aspects, the emotional side and the how do we co-parent and how do we split up our possessions, that some of which can be really important to us. So we can
Yeah.
work through that more holistically, and in that process, even instead of putting them as adversaries, we can coach them through to laying a new groundwork toward how are we going to operate together, or not together, but how are we going to co-parent, how are we going to work through this so we can establish new methods and new habits of communication that will serve them well past their divorce, and into co-parenting, because parenting doesn't even end. Our legal orders and obligations a lot of times end at 18, but we all know that that's not the length of our commitment to our children. It's a lifetime commitment. And
Right.
that's the goal. A lot of collaborative attorneys say our goal is to see our clients happily, sharing a dance at their children's wedding because they've laid that groundwork. They've worked through some of the, challenges of, because you're kind of in a battle. By the time you've gotten to the decision to divorce, it's difficult. It's actually completely understandable that people are angry and frustrated, and losing it, as you said, is so hard. But
Yeah.
we want to help them lay that groundwork. And so working in a collaborative way and building that team is like a breath of fresh air, because instead of just continuing that fight until the bitter end of a divorce and then having to pick up those pieces and figure it out, we can instead do it in the legal process. And I think,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Now, the legal process is different in different states. And of course, you
Yeah.
work in Oklahoma. But if I am just at the very beginning, maybe somebody's left, but we haven't actually filed, right?
Hmm.
What is something can that I should know? Do this first so that I don't end up with a ball of tangled yarn later.
Right. Okay. So if you're just at the point where you're realizing the marriage unfortunately is over and we're going to have to walk through a legal process to separate,
Mhm.
there are options, and a lot of that time, it's if you're going to if you're going to hire an attorney, the highest recommendation I can give is to ask around to other people who might have used attorneys before, or ask people you trust. Then,
Yeah.
when you're interviewing those attorneys, sometimes that's a hard and difficult process on itself because you're sharing with them over and over, you're being vulnerable. But check and make sure that that attorney is hearing what your desires are and finding
Yes.
one who can specialize in what you're seeking. So if you are seeking a collaborative or amicable divorce, and you are wanting to stay out of court, ask them questions like that. Are you trained in collaborative divorce, or are you trained in out of court process? because my goal is to stay out of court. And I want to work with my spouse in this way to stay out of court. So finding an
Gotcha.
attorney who shares your similar mindset is one, probably the biggest step that you can take. And again,
Yeah.
you can't always choose that because it has to be an amicable process. Again, has to be chosen by both parties, but it's surprising how if you start the process, so if you want that and you're not sure what your spouse wants, if you hire someone who specializes in that, we specialize in contacting that other party in the gentlest way possible to invite them into that process instead of serving them with divorce papers, which doesn't exactly start an amicable process well.
Right.
Not
Right.
amicable, if we're trying to stay amicable, we try to work together from the beginning. And we have to,
That's nice to have someone on your side who can, like you said, invite the other party into the process instead of just being so blunt. Now, let's say I'm already way past that point and things have gotten to where I feel like um, this is this is getting ugly.
mhm.
Is there a way that I can uh, something that I can do or that my attorney can do to kind of help to bring things down a notch?
Yes. So again, there's a two-way street always
Hmm.
with fighting, and there's times we have to stand up for our clients in court
Yeah.
because you just have to. And we're always, even in a collaborative sense, I'm always thinking of protecting my clients' rights. But
Right.
if you're in a really contentious situation, work with your attorney, talk with them, and say, I really like to, finish this and take it to a more positive note. There are options for even cases that are in prolonged litigation. You can see, is mediation a good option for us now? In most states, I can tell you in Oklahoma, mediation is actually a required step before you go to trial. Before you're allowed to ask a judge to rule on your case, you have to go to mediation. Well, choosing a skilled mediator and committing enough time, making sure your attorney is committed to, preparing the mediator and preparing your settlement offers. You can do that. And mediation, as I said, I'm a family mediator too. It's a great option where you meet with a neutral third party who's experienced in family law. Sometimes they're even retired judges, and they can give you a good idea of this is what is a settlement that's going to look good for your family. And you still maintain you're staying out of court as far as you aren't asking the judge who doesn't really know you to make a decision about your life. You're still maintaining the ability to make the decisions about your life, and to make decisions about detailed decisions that you can't always get when you're in the court process. You are choosing, and so mediation is still a great
Right.
opportunity. And so ask your attorney about something like that. Work with your attorney to see if there's something we can do. You're not always,
So there's two
go ahead.
things. There's
Yeah.
collaboration, a collaborative divorce where you may even be able to stay out of court and work together to form a reasonable plan.
Mhm.
And then there's mediation when you're already in the court kind of process.
I can't hear you now. Can you hear me? Oh, I thought I heard you for a minute.
Well, I'm going to keep talking. Hopefully this will work. But
I can't hear you again. Oh, there we go.
today. I appreciate you opening our eyes to those possibilities today. Up next, we have Kristen Afalumo, who was recommended to me by Lauren Lindsey. And Lauren has been our attorney who's given us some advice today for keeping our heads on as we go through the divorce. And Kristen will help us keep our bank accounts as we go through the divorce and not let our spending get out of control. Thank you, Lauren, for being with us, and thanks for your recommendations. All right, let's see here. I'll be right back with Kristen Apalumo.